Alrighty, everyone, welcome to the first series recap here on BSML Red Sox. The season is underway tomorrow. Wish it was today, but we had a little bit of a rain out. So Red Sox season starts tomorrow. We're going to be recapping the 3-game series upcoming against the dreaded New York Yankees. And I am joined today by Brady. If you don't know Brady, me and him did a play-by-play broadcast of the spring training game last weekend. He's going to be a big part of BSML Red Sox. And I'm also joined by a familiar face in BSML and Ian. Ian does a lot of work with the Celtics, and he'll be with us here on a recurring basis. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. How about you? How you doing today, David?
Doing good. Just looking forward to getting the season going. So, as we all know, the Red Sox had a very surprising season last year. No one expected them to do as well as they did. A lot of people thought that they were going to finish in fourth, maybe get like 70, 80 wins. Well, they shock everyone. They get 92 wins, and they came within 2 wins of making it to the World Series. So there's just a lot of good mojo right now in the Red Sox organization. They're looking to build off of that heading into 2022. And just before we get into anything else, any general thoughts you have about how this team can do this year for both of you?
Ian, you want to go ahead? Or?
Yeah, I'll go. Why not? So honestly and truthfully, the AL East is going to be a dogfight this year. I mean, even the MLB couldn't choose a specific winner. They had a 4-way tie for first place. So it's going to be tough for the Sox this year. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, last year ended up being pretty tough, but they ended up pulling it out anyway. And honestly, it feels like it's another year where the Red Sox are going to get slept on until they start winning games. And then people are going to act surprised when, they did the same exact thing last year. So I can honestly see a repeat of how the Red Sox played last year. I mean, they brought back basically the entire team, just adding, a huge piece in Trevor Story. So I'm pretty excited to see what the Red Sox do this season. Granted, there's still concerns about, the pitching and everything, but all I know is that the offense is going to rake this year, and that's what I'm excited for.
Just
How are you, Brady?
Entirely piggybacking off of what Ian said about expectations and how it's going to be a dogfight for the AL East this year. I feel like the Red Sox are going to surprise some people. I feel like we're going to do a lot better than people are giving us. They're giving us 4th place right now. I feel like that's the consensus pick. I have us finishing in 2nd. I believe that with the acquired power with Trevor Story, his bat's going to bring us in. I personally think that we could make a deep playoff run dependent on the other seeds in the AL East because it's going to be tough, but I feel like we're still going to surprise some people. And like you said with the pitching, I agree. It is going to be rough, but once Chris Sale's healthy later in the season and once we find Nathan Eovaldi in midseason form, I think we can make a good run.
Were there any surprises for either of you today when the roster for the Red Sox opening day was settled today? Red Sox get 2 extra players to start off the season. Every MLB team does. So we go up from 28 players from the original 26. I'm just looking at the roster right now. If you ask me, there wasn't really too many surprises. I think Cutter Crawford was a pleasant surprise to make it onto the opening day roster. He's going to be a reliever, but it's just really most of the same, or most of what we expected. Obviously, familiar faces like Garrett Whitlock, Matt Barnes, Hansel Robles, Sawamura manning out the pen, and rotation was pretty predictable as is. But any surprises from you guys on the opening day roster?
Not really. I mean, it was kind of cool to see Jonathan Arauz make the big league team. It's kind of interesting to see Travis Shaw make it up there too. I guess I don't really remember too much about Travis Shaw in spring training this year, but he played pretty decent for when we had him at the end of last year. So I'm not against it. I was kind of surprised that they DFA'd Bizzardo.
Yeah.
He was pretty good in the minors last year. I think he ended up being the Woo Sox best pitcher overall last year. So I don't know, that was a little bit surprising, although I could kind of see it coming since they didn't actually pitch him at all in spring training. So, but yeah, I feel like someone's going to take a chance on him. But other than that, I mean, this is kind of what we expected, what the roster was going to look like.
Yeah. Going off of what you said, it is nice to see Jonathan Arauz on the roster. However, with the amount of infield depth we have in our minor league system, it's kind of weird to see a guy like Caro who's getting on that roster when there's so much talent within the infield in our minor league system. But other than that, no real surprises.
Yeah, I think off of what Ian was talking about with Shaw, I think if you talked to me at the beginning of spring training, I would have thought Shaw spent time in Worcester again, but we need backup corner infielders. And Travis Shaw is someone who, obviously, in his first stint in Boston was great. It's looking like it was a mistake when we traded him to Milwaukee all those years ago. But now that he's back here, he obviously had some clutch moments last year in pinch hitting. I vividly remember the pinch hit home run against Texas last year towards the end of the summer. So he's just a pinch hit threat. He's got versatility defensively, and he's just a good left-handed bat. So seeing him on the roster definitely doesn't surprise me at the end of the day. I know there were some talks about if Garrett Whitlock was going to be in the bullpen or the starting rotation to open the season, and he's going to fit right back in the bullpen. Whether he's back in his setup role, which is what he was at the beginning of last season, or he's our closer again, because as we all know, Matt Barnes didn't have the best second half last year. So time will tell, but it seems like Whitlock and Hill, Cora was talking about, could piggyback off each other, where maybe we go in games where Rich Hill is scheduled to pitch. Rich Hill goes 5 innings and then Whitlock goes 4 innings, because Cora talked about stretching out Whitlock a lot, just getting him ready just in case he needs to start, but not really any shockers here. The rotation is obviously depleted right now without Chris Sale for the first couple of months, but it's just something we have to work through.
I'm sorry, I just have to make a comment. Matt Barnes is the CEO of mid.
CEO of mid? I mean,
I don't know about that. I mean, he was an all-star before he kind of fell apart in the second half.
I'm a big Matt Barnes guy. I always have been. Like, I believe in him probably more than I should, and probably more than like any of us fans should. But last year, starting off 19 for 19 and save opportunities like that, I hope that wasn't a fluke. And then, as we just talked about, it all fell apart right after we gave him the money. But
I will say, though, it was a little concerning seeing that report that Matt Barnes was like lost velocity on his fastball. That's kind of concerning because his fastball got hit around a little bit in the second half of the year. And with it being, not at the 96 to 98 range, it kind of was last year. That could potentially spell the end for him in the closer role if he can't really get it going right away.
Sorry, Brady, you go.
Full respect to Matt Barnes. He obviously did have a stellar first half of the season, obviously making the All-Star game. I just think with the amount that he's fallen off and that kind of stuff, it's hard to see him in that closer role. And again, what you said with his fastball decreasing in velocity, I think that's going to be a big struggle for him. And I don't know what's going to be our next move with Matt Barnes.
We're kind of stuck with him. We just gave him the bag last summer, 2-year, $19 million extension. So we got to ride it out with him.
Received it for Bogarts.
Well, that's another thing too.
Great.
I don't want to get too much into this stuff, but because obviously we want to talk about the season at hand. But if you have not seen the reports that came out today, Bogarts and Devers will not be getting contract extensions, and Devers will be a free agent in 2 winters, and Bogarts, all signs point to him becoming a free agent next winter. So, I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet, but it's always scary when one of your best players and one of the franchise cornerstones hits the open market.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of went through this when Mookie Betts was here, and that wasn't very fun. But honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. If we have to choose between one of them, I say we have to re-sign Devers. Honestly, I love Bogarts, but I feel like this was the whole reason why we signed Trevor Story in the first place was if Bogarts decided to walk, we wouldn't be screwed at shortstop. Granted, we do have guys in the minors like Jeter Downs. He's pretty good, but I don't think he's really going to be a shortstop. I think he's going to be more of a second baseman. But even if we don't have, a shortstop, we still have Marcelo Meyer down there too. So I think the Sox will be good at shortstop if Bogarts does decide to leave. But I wouldn't want to see Bogarts leave because I love Bogarts. But if it comes down to having to choose between one of them, you have to pay Rafael Devers.
See, I entirely agree with you. Obviously, we did sign Story because of the will he won't he thing, but Bogarts has been again one of the cornerstones of our organization for so long, and it's just going to be rough to see him leave if he does, of course. But I just wonder, how would he fit in onto any other team? I mean, he's been with this organization for so many years; it's what he's used to. I personally don't see him leaving, but if I had to pick, I perfectly agree with you about Rafael Devers being the one to keep.
No, I'm the same way. And I think I don't want to, because we are on a time limit here. I hate these Zoom calls, so they're only like 40 minutes, but I don't want to spend too much time on the past or like focus on things we can't control. But real quick, people are saying Bogarts to the Yankees in the future, which will make me puke if that happens. And unfortunately, they could use a shortstop. Who do they? It's Glaber? Yeah, Glaber Torres right now. Bogarts is definitely an upgrade over him. Bogarts' favorite player growing up was Derek Jeter too. So the signs are there for that to happen. But I don't want to. I don't even want to think about that anymore. I hope I didn't just manifest that. But going back to what
Thanks,
you were
David.
saying, yeah, right. So going back to what Ian was saying quickly, though, I mean, you do get flashbacks of the whole Mookie thing. Although I was pissed at Heim and like front office when that first happened, but it kind of took me a year to realize. I think that ownership just ownership made the move, and it seemed like Mookie probably wasn't even going to resign here. If you ask me, I hate saying that, but it seemed like he just didn't want to be here because we offered him 3 contract extensions. We offered him after the 16th season, 5 years, 100. After 2017, we offered him 8 years, 200. And then after 2018, we offered him 10 years, 300. So he wanted the Trout contract. Obviously, he didn't get that in LA because of the pandemic, but the Red Sox tried with them and he just, it is what it is. We had to cut our losses. But moving on to the season at hand, we're going up against our dread rivals, the Yankees, as I said at the beginning of the program. The Yankees are the team that we took down in the wild card game last year. They're obviously looking for revenge. If you ask me, just before we dig into the pitching matchups of each game, I do think these teams are really even or closer than people think, in the sense that pitching is going to be a weakness for both of these teams. And the Yankees, along with us, made upgrades to our offense to try and get better. And I think these two teams are going to mash a ton. I don't know if that'll happen in this series because, the first few series of the year, you're just feeling everything out. But I think these teams are banking on success through winning games with their offense, and their pitchers are going to have to overachieve, which is what happened for both of these clubs last year. And that's a big reason why both us and the Yankees made it at least to the wild card last season, was we relied on overachieving from pitching. So I think you're just going to see a lot of the same between these two clubs where, we're banking on a ton of offense and just we need pitching to just be decent and have our offense be amazing to win games.
Yeah, I believe that both of us are going to be, struggling with the pitching thing. I mean, obviously, I believe it's Garrett Cole versus Nathan Eovaldi for opening day. You also have to remember that Garrett Cole he sort of fell off last year. And I don't want to use the term fell off because that's saying a lot about a player, and a player can have a rebound season like that. So he's gotten slightly not as good. But we also have to remember that even if the pitching isn't solid, again, we have those big bats, and that's what we compensate with. And of course, Trevor Story's going to help that with the Red Sox. But the Yankees didn't acquire that much offense over the offseason, so I feel like the Red Sox could have the upper hand in that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't really know if Garrett Cole fell off. Really, I just think he had just had to adjust to, not using his sticky stuff. And I mean, he was still Cy Young candidate at that point. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to say he fell off when he was still somewhat of a Cy Young candidate at the end of the year. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. Honestly, I'm just hoping to see Rafael Devers take him deep. That's kind of the one thing that I'm banking on, because he did that. I think he did that twice last year.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm hoping for. So, but yeah, it's going to be a good game, I feel like, because both of these teams, like you said, they rely on their offense. Their offense is going to be what wins them ball games this year. And we'll have to see how this offense does against two really, really good pitchers. And people forgot that Nathan Eovaldi was 4th in AL Cy Young last year. I mean, people forget how good Nathan Eovaldi is. So I feel like he can match up with Garrett Cole pretty well, and he could potentially stop the Yankees offense in this game.
So that's a
I'm excited for
perfect.
next-
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting series, and that's a perfect segue into just getting into each of these games. So, first game tomorrow, opening day for the season for the Red Sox and the Yankees at 1:05. We have Evaldi versus Garrett Cole as the pitching matchup. Both of the team's aces. You might be wondering, oh, isn't Sale the ace? Well, no. Evaldi's done so much in the last few years where Evaldi, in my opinion, has earned the term of ace. I think he would have been the opening day starter even if Sale was healthy, but that's besides the point. Evaldi last season in an all-star appearance, or he earned an all-star appearance by going 11-9 with a 3.75 ERA. Evaldi got off to a really hot start, and yes, he did cool off in the second half a bit, but the Red Sox as a whole had a roller coaster of the second half. Very, very stressful, but again, that's all last year's stuff. So Evaldi looking to be consistent again for the Red Sox and another opening day start. And Garrett Cole for the Yankees last year went 16-8 with a 3.23 ERA. So, I mean, we kind of already touched upon it, but I do think that this is a fairly even matchup. And we could be looking at tomorrow's game being honestly pretty low scoring or like a one-run decision at the end. I could be looking at something where both pitchers do great, and then it just comes down to which bullpen implodes first.
Pretty much. Yeah, I could see that happening. That's kind of how most Red Sox Yankees games are nowadays. I mean, how many games, what did it come down to like the last inning? Like it came down to like the seventh, eighth inning because both starters pitched insanely well. I went to a game last year against the Yankees. It was the game where they won on the walk-off wild. Well, I don't know if it was the walk-off wild pitch, but the guy like threw like 5 wild pitches in like
Yeah.
the top of the 11th or bottom of the 11th, whatever. I went to that game and like there was nothing happening for the first like 6 innings when the starters were out there. And then the starters got taken out and all of the scoring started happening. So that's kind of how it is with the Red Sox Yankees matchups. And it's pretty entertaining that way. So I can easily see this game, being something like that.
See, you guys said it perfectly. I totally agree. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I've seen a lot of predictions. I've seen Yankees 5-4. I saw Red Sox 4-3. But no matter what, it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game, and both sides are going to have a very defensive day.
Yeah, it's funny because I went to the game. I forgot who was pitching for the Yankees, but it was like the infamous game. It was like the last high moment for the Red Sox in the first half where we came back. That guy in the Yankees was no hitting us through 8 innings. I forget who it was.
Oh yeah, it was
Domingo
Herman, right? Yeah.
Domingo Herman. That's right. He was no hitting us through 8 innings, and then we had that crazy comeback where Verdugo got it started by hitting a double to deep right, and then Boone made a decision like, nope, you're done. And then the bullpen came in, scored 5 unanswered, and the rest is history. But yeah, we could be looking at just, like you said, Ian, it just feels like so many of these games, especially a lot of them last year, where just which team blinks an eye first. So the second matchup, or game 2 of this series, the projected matchup is Nick Pivetta on the bump for the Red Sox versus Severino on the Yankees. Pivetta last season was pretty good, a pretty solid, reliable starter for Boston at the back end of the rotation. He went 9-8 with a 4.53 ERA last year. And Severino only pitched in 4 games last year as he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. He's had injury problems since 2019. He went 1-0 though last year in the 4 games he played. And he's just hoping to have a fully healthy season for the first time in a while. So honestly, if you ask me, like I don't like to be like this guy where I don't take a side, but like this seems like another even pitching matchup because Pivetta in a lot of games, as we know, last year was very dominant. I mean, it seems like every time we faced the Tampa Bay Rays, he took like a no-hitter or a perfect game into the 7th. But there's just a lot of unknown with Pivetta because he did struggle at times last year too. And with Severino, you don't know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Although I predict opening day to be like a low scoring affair, I can honestly see game 2 being a high scoring affair. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I hope and I pray that Nick Pivetta can find some consistency this year because that's going to be super important for the Sox moving forward. He played really well. I think wasn't he like I can't remember. Wasn't he like 9-0 on the road at one point, or like he was like undefeated on the road at one point during the year, and like he was just dominant on the road. So I'm hoping we can see more of the same from Pivetta this year. But honestly, I feel like after opening day, I just feel like there's going to be one game in this series where it ends like 12-10 or, like 9-7 or something like that, because I mean, the offense is just too good to not have that happen. And I mean, we don't know what we're getting out of Severino. Like you said, he only pitched 4 innings last year, and Severino was a really good pitcher before he got injured. So, I mean, we'll have to see what happens. Both pitchers are kind of a wild card going into this game.
Real quickly, just to go off that, Ian, he finished before he got hurt all those years ago. In back-to-back years, Severino finished like 4th and 9th in Cy Young voting. So that was
he
years
was crazy
ago.
good.
But you go, Brady.
Yeah, I was just gonna just piggyback off of what you guys said. Again, Pivetta I see as an up and coming guy. I feel like he's gonna have an even better performance this year. And obviously Severino is still a wild card because I mean, when pitching for only 4 games, you don't really know what that's gonna bring to the table this year. But I personally don't think that game 2 is gonna be that high scoring. I think that's gonna come once we're further toward the back of the rotation, possibly on Sunday.
Yeah, so segueing into Sunday's matchup, the third and final game of the series. On the bump for the Red Sox is Tanner Houck, and for the Yankees, it's Jordan Montgomery. Tanner Houck obviously spent last year for the Red Sox bouncing in between Worcester and Boston. It looks like he'll be spending most of the year, we think, at least up here in Boston, as an integral part of the rotation. Houck went 1-5 with a 3.52 ERA last year with the Bigs, and Montgomery went 6-7 with a 3.83 ERA, last year for the Yankees. So the big thing with me for Houck this year is we saw how great he was. I know everyone was blown away in that first start he had against Baltimore in the second game of the season. And, the joke is that he's just a right-handed Chris Sale at this point. And there's so much untapped potential there. He's 25 years old, but maybe is it fair to him? I don't know what I'm about to say if it's fair to him, but we need him to take a bigger leap this year because we are lacking depth in the rotation. Obviously, with the loss of Eduardo Rodriguez, we need someone like a Tanner Houck to step up even more. And whether it was because of Cora doing this or Houck just didn't prove he was capable of it, Houck never went through the rotation, or excuse me, he never went through the lineup for the third time. He was always pulled after going through the lineup twice last year. So if he's given the keys to do that, we need him to be successful. We need Houck to give us at least 5 to 6 innings. And obviously, just touching upon Montgomery, this is another guy where it's similar to Severino, where you don't know what you're going to get with him. He had a pretty solid season last year, not record-wise, of course, but a 3.83 ERA, anything sub 4 is pretty solid. So I don't really know. I don't know how to predict this game. I am in agreement that like the first game could be low scoring, the second game could be a shootout offensively, but the third game, who knows if you ask me.
See, I agree with you on the third game being sort of a toss-up, but I just want to speak to Tanner Houck really quick and say I'm a firm believer in Tanner Houck. I believe that he's going to have a great year. He's going to spend his time in the majors, and he's going to keep up with that nasty slider that he keeps throwing. And, I mean, Tanner Houck is another up-and-coming guy that I think could possibly, with time come, be our second rotation guy or even maybe our ace at some point. But his development is getting better and better each year. And that's what's going to happen again this year.
Yeah. Like you said, Brady, I am 100% on the Tanner Houck hype train. I watched Tanner Houck in Worcester last year, and I think he made like one start and he pitched like 3 innings and he struck out like 7 people. Like he is so nasty. He has great stuff. I mean, his stuff is insane. If he can just find some consistency, but at the same time stay healthy, because he had that one start and then it felt like he wasn't in the majors again until like the middle of the year. But if he can stay healthy this year, and I mean, it looks like he's going to have as many starts as he wants to at this point. So if he stays healthy, I could easily see Tanner Houck becoming a crazy good pitcher for the Sox this year. But for this game, it'll be interesting because I always remember Jordan Montgomery always pitching really well against the Red Sox for some reason. Last year, I think he played us like almost every series the Sox played the Yankees last year, and I feel like every time he pitched really well, and then his bullpen let him down after. So I could honestly see Jordan Montgomery having a good game. I don't know what we're going to see out of Tanner Houck. I hope he can have a good game, but at the same time, we will see what happens.
It'll just be interesting if, assuming this is Houck's first full season in the majors, just going back to what I was saying, where so many times last year it felt like Houck was stealing in starts, but we all knew Cora was going to pull him as soon as it came time to go through the third time in the order. So I think the biggest thing to watch, or it'll be interesting in this game, is as long as Houck doesn't get lit up immediately, do we see him go a third time through the order? Because a lot of pitchers these days in the MLB as is, you don't really ever see a pitcher go through the order 3 times anymore. So it's something if Houck wants to take the next step, I hope that he's given the keys to do it. But I'm in agreement with you guys. I think Houck for the future can be a heck of a back end rotation guy. Obviously, we're going to need a lot out of him for the first couple months, just of course, because Chris Sale is going to be hurt and he won't be back until June at the earliest. But even if Houck can't make a name for himself in the rotation, you look at what he did in the playoffs out of the bullpen last year. I think he retired. He was perfect for like 28 straight outs or something like that in the Tampa series and like heading into Houston. There's just so much potential there. And I don't know if you guys know this, but obviously the biggest thing with Houck, or if you guys have any more information about this, but a lot of people were saying Houck needs to learn another pitch because I think he can only throw 2 pitches. So I don't know if he learned how to throw another one in the offseason, but I think that's just another thing he could work on that can make him even just so much better. But as we touched upon, there's just so much potential for Houck, and there's just so many options the Red Sox have with him.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if he hasn't learned that new pitch, I mean, we still know that he can rely on that slider. And anyway you slice it, Tanner Houck is still going to be a solid pitcher, even if he only has 2. But until we can find that, we can rely on the 2 that he has.
honestly, at worst, if Tanner Houck doesn't work out as a starter, I could see him becoming a dominant closer. Not even going to lie.
That's a good
I
point.
mean, imagine having Tanner Houck as your closer. That'd be insane. His stuff would be crazy. And he would only have to worry about like 3 hitters. So it's not like he'll face the lineup multiple times in a game. So, and he can throw as hard and as crazy as he wants as a closer, pretty much. So I could honestly see that working out if a starting position doesn't happen, which I hope it does, because I want to see the Red Sox develop a good starting pitcher. It's been a while, but I mean, at worst, I could see him becoming a dominant bullpen piece, to be honest.
If Tanner Houck doesn't end up being a starter and he does become a closer, like you're saying, he will lead the league in saves, and you can quote me on that.
He's going to be a crazy closer if he can.
Imagine. I mean, I think we're looking at this is a tangent, but we're probably looking at Whitlock joining the rotation at some point in the next couple of years. But I would be able to sleep well if we go Whitlock set up and then Tanner Houck closing. Like,
that'd be crazy. That would be crazy.
So before we get into our series predictions, we'll just take a quick second. I don't know if there's any advantages for each side, disadvantages, X factors. I mean, like we talked about, it does seem like both these sides are pretty even in terms of, offense heavy. You hope for the best from pitching, but I don't know. Is there any like potential X factors you see on either side for these teams? I guess I would say Tanner Houck, and just, how long Tanner Houck goes into a game could be an X factor for the Red Sox, but is anything for the Yankees? I mean, maybe Josh Donaldson, see if he has anything left in the tank. I mean, I don't know if that's an X factor for this particular series, but you look at someone who the Yankees are obviously putting a lot of trust in by trading for him this offseason, and he is getting older. He's on the wrong side of 30, but anything stand out to you guys in the series that could, determine who wins the series?
Ian, I hope you don't mind if I go first, but
by all means.
But I will say this: the Yankees have the upper hand in one category over us, which is having bats in the outfield. I mean, they got guys like Aaron Judge and they've got Joey Gallo who can still consistently hit in the out when they're playing outfield. The Red Sox have Jackie Bradley Jr., who is seeing offensive upside during spring training. But I don't see us with a lot of bats, with the best bats in the outfield, but we have bats in the infield, and that overcompensates for what we have in the outfield. So I could see us hitting better, obviously, with our infielders than with our outfielders, whereas the Yankees do the opposite.
Yeah, for the Sox, their X factor is going to have to be their starting pitching. I think we know Nathan Eovaldi is going to have. I mean, he's going to be good. He's Nathan Eovaldi. He's going to be good. I think we're just going to have to see what we get out of Nick Pivetta and Tanner Houck for the other 2 games of the series. And honestly, an underrated X factor for the Yankees that I kind of thought of, but at the time it didn't seem like a big deal. But now I kind of think about it. Kyle Higashioka is their catcher. I mean, he had an insane spring training. If he can carry that over into the regular season, I mean, he could potentially be a problem for the Sox because, I mean, he's probably going to hit lower in the lineup. Imagine you get through Stanton and Judge and Gallo and Donaldson and all those guys, and now you have to face Kyle Higashioka at the bottom of the order, and I don't know, watch him take us deep. So I could potentially see
Thanks,
him
Ian.
going off this series. I mean, I'm not a Yankee fan, but at the same time, I can realize how good he is. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But I feel like there's going to be that one guy that just going to torture the Sox this entire series.
And to imagine that he was originally playing on a team where he had to sit behind Gary Sanchez, that's terrifying.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Now Gary Sanchez has found greener pastures in Minnesota.
Yep.
Still trying to be the catcher to fill Joe Mauer's shoes out there. It's not going to be him.
So while you guys were talking, I did think of a couple X factors myself. So I don't even know how I forgot about this guy. He nearly caused me a ton of nightmares at the end of last season. But Giancarlo Stanton, the Red Sox could not get him out at the end of the season last year. It's getting ridiculous. Again, completely different season, but like I just we could not get Giancarlo Stanton out at the end of the year last year, both in that last series at the end of September and in that wild card game. So that's someone you always have to look out for. Joey Gallo and DJ LeMahieu obviously need to have bounce back years. Obviously, Joey Gallo gets a bad rap because he strikes out a ton. Really, a lot of the Yankees players are that whole outfield pretty much Judge, Gallo. It's swinger. It's either strikeout or double or home run. So having them, bat and get the balls in play is certainly going to be a big thing for them. And for the Red Sox, you look at someone who could be an X factor on offense. I look at a Bobby Dahlbeck, someone who caught fire at the end of last season. Obviously, for the better part of last season, struggled, but at the end of the year, late summer, he really turned around his season and was able to salvage something out of it. He had a pretty solid spring, and if he can build off that, that's going to be great because we know what Devers, we know what Bogarts can do. We know what Kike Hernandez can do, but we need someone in the back half of the order, which it looks like Dahlbeck's going to be batting in there to be able to take some of the pressure off the top 6 guys. So hopefully Dahlbeck can do that, but I think all those people can play a big part in how this series plays out. So to wrap up, what we'll do at the end of these shows is just give our series predictions. So who do you think is going to win the series? Like, for example, if you think Red Sox sweep, Red Sox 2-3, or something for the Yankees, like, what do you guys think is going to happen in this 3-game set?
David, I'm just going to interrupt really quick. You were saying that Giancarlo gives you nightmares. You know who gives me nightmares?
Who gives you nightmares?
Daniel Vogelbach.
Daniel Vogelbach. Oh, yeah, the babe. Nice little joke.
Yeah, a reference to our original stream.
Yes.
Of PSML Red Sox, Daniel Vogelbach of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah,
so just a quick reference before you answer, Ian, just for all the viewers, when we were doing our spring training broadcast last weekend, I looked at Vogelbach's bio, and I guess his nickname is the Babe to like mimic Babe Ruth, and Brady did not take kindly to that. He thinks he's a little cocky, but I'll let you answer the question.
Conceited BS out there.
I don't know. Maybe he wasn't given that nickname though. Maybe
true.
Someone else gave him that nickname just because of his stature. And I mean, I know he was a beast in college. Like he was crazy good in college, so they probably called him that because of that. Probably not anymore.
David
the Pirates
Price
are losing 5-0 right now, so he's not doing much.
Real quick, David Price gave Brock Holt the nickname Babe Holt, so there you have that. But
see, anyone can have the
right. Yeah, anyone can have it. But how do you guys think the series is going to go before we wrap up?
Anyway, for the series, I can see the Sox winning 2 out of 3. I don't think it'll be a sweep either way, but it can easily be 2 out of 3 both ways. But I'm going to give it to the Sox anyway.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Ian said. I also agree with a 2 out of 3 situation, although unfortunately I see the Yankees taking it. I just don't see us heating up until maybe the second or third series of the year, sort of like how we did last year with our beginning sweep of the Orioles.
Don't talk about that. No, we don't. No.
Hey, I
Awful.
went to the second game of our second series, and that was amazing.
Oh yeah, the Tampa series.
Yeah, I think we won like 12 to something. It was a great game. Sat behind a pole.
Yeah, so my prediction before we wrap up, I'm going to side with Ian. I think the Red Sox are going to take 2 or 3. I think we'll win opening day tomorrow. I think Evaldi's going to get the better of Cole. And I think if we talked about what that situation transpiring, if it comes down to the bullpens, I think the Red Sox can get it done for a game, at least on opening day. I think the Yankees are going to take game 2 because if we talked about it being a shootout, I don't think the Red Sox will be able to keep up. So I think it'll all come down to that rubber match on Sunday. And I think I'll give Houck the benefit of the doubt over Montgomery to at least give us 5 solid innings and the Red Sox to do enough offensively there. So I think the Red Sox take 2 or 3. We all think 2 or 3 in some capacity, but just happy baseball's back. So we're running short on time. We're going to wrap it up here. This is the first pre-series recap on BSML Red Sox. Obviously, the Red Sox are getting ready to start their season tomorrow. It should be fun. After this series, we have a date with Detroit for 3 games. We'll have a pre-series recap at some point for that. Guys, thanks for being a part of this first pre-series recap. It's going to be a fun Red Sox season. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we can build off of what we did last year as an organization. And yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to say in the last 90 seconds?
Screw Daniel Vogelbach.
Alrighty. On that note, make sure you subscribe to this channel, BSML Red Sox. Make sure you subscribe to Boston Sports Media Live. We're going to have so much content coming on these channels. We're going to do post-series recaps, pre-series recaps, and play-by-play broadcasts. And we're going to do a podcast every month. And I will do a YouTube short after every game, all 162 games to recap how those games went. So we'll have so much content for you guys. It's going to be a great season. Thank you all for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
Tanner Houck for Cy Young.